Blackness, as we know, is physical, cultural, and quite often a commodity. eBay, however, doesn't have the grounds to declare Keith Obadike's blackness as false advertising, and it can't really say that it doesn't already trade in blackness on a daily basis. Also, eBay does not allow much room for the potential of postings to exist self-reflexively as another person's work of art through the posting, though the posting may actually be selling something. This would perhaps break ground for the possibility of eBay postings selling other eBay postings, or at least material prints of historical eBay postings, which eBay will probably retain the rights to anyway. While other artists have claimed that their auctioning of an item on eBay is their artwork, Keith Obadike has earned the distinction of being the only artist thus far who has had their sale terminated, aside from a female who was actually serious in attempting to sell her virginity on eBay, and who later proved successful in doing so from her own personal website. The juiciest content is that which is perhaps most true in Obadike's authored linguistic message in the key of pseudo-legalese. When prompted to produce an item description, some of my favorite benefits include number 9, this blackness may be used to augment the blackness of those already black, especially for the purposes of playing blacker than thou. 10, this blackness may be used by blacks as a spare, in case your original blackness is whooped off you. However, be warned, the seller does not recommend that this blackness be used during legal proceedings of any sort, while seeking employment, while voting in the United States or Florida, or in the process of making or selling serious art. A point somewhat exemplified by eBay's response to terminate this work. Since 2003, social networking sites have become amazingly popular. These are places where text boxes prompt you to enter in as much personal information as you will allow and upload any multimedia that you feel best represents yourself. Given that information, these sites will effectively produce a simulacrum of oneself in the form of an interactive web page viewable to all, and especially yourself, every time you log into your profile. What's more, if you find that you have a friend or a coworker also with a profile page on this same site, you can illustrate the great friendship that you have in real life in the form of making your respective pages also friends with themselves. This is due to the tendency of such profiling structures to emulate or virtually materialize social networks as they appear in reality. However, there are a number of mildly culturally deviant actions the system will allow, including but not limited to publicizing your band, pretending that cartoon characters actually exist, and for instance, establishing your own academic department. Terry Peppermint has produced a MySpace profile that seems to represent or create the existence of his own academic department, the Department of Network Performance. Immediate visual elements include images of other artworks and net artists in the state of performing their personas, which appear on his profile by way of an HTML modification to the original MySpace template. For example, there's an image of Duchamp's fountain and a still from a Lonely Girl 15 video being a YouTube.com alias of a person that performed an alternate identity through a series of videos meant to recreate the illusion that she was documenting a much simpler, younger, and less scripted version of herself named Greek. Soon after the first seconds of audio have uploaded, the viewer will begin to hear Peppermint's introductory remarks, an MP3 track that discusses at great length the topic of information as it pertains to anything, from any viewpoint, by any possible definition. Additionally, his repeated monotone enunciation of the word information, complete lack of insight, and George W. Bush-esque twang establish a farcical parody of anybody who's ever attempted to teach a class about anything. After a climax that starts somewhere around, quote, information can make you want to get you some, comma, I'm talking about sex, and reaches the conclusion, remember where you came from, the vocal then recycles itself, this time being accompanied by a score of arpeggiated techno synthesizers. The site also addresses the viewer as a student from the point of view of a professor by way of a self-reflexive course outline that clarifies, quote, this is not MySpace. This is Arts 404.jo, simultaneously a network course and performance intended to assist students in the conceptualization, development, and implementation of online instances of network performance art practices. This disclaimer, also part of the performance, is effective in establishing the terms of the piece itself as both a class that demands a performance as a conceptual illustration, and yet is also a performance that depends on its own insistence that it is in fact a class, which serves as the content necessary for the performance to take place. Since representations of things are both things themselves and representations of other things, it becomes difficult to ascertain whether or not this department, in fact, does exist outside of the MySpace page that represents it, if not in real life, then in Carrie Peppermint's mind, or simply that the MySpace page is the thing itself that it represents. There are several icono-linguistic indications that this in fact is not a MySpace simulacrum that refers to and depends on the outside existence of a real academic department. For example, the fact that it's on MySpace, the fact that it's 97 years old, female, and located in a town called Global Connect Performance, New York. However, Peppermint actually is an assistant professor at Colgate University, and this very well qualifies as a site capable of helping many students who are interested in network performance, new media, and artistic practice in general. Functionally, it has informative educational links. Functionally, it is a working example of network performance art. Functionally, it is also an insider's critique of academic culture and practice. These are things that anything which claims to be something should represent and respond to. In other words, the Department of Network Performance is effectively able to represent and comment on the very thing that it claims to be and ultimately actually is. Furthermore, the piece exemplifies both the rise of new media as a cultural phenomenon and as an institutional field of study, while it is presently being indoctrinated into legitimacy through the systems of academia, themselves also happening to be infrastructures of dominant commercial and governmental culture. That's my presentation.